So today I want to talk to you about how to start or improve your personal wealth. So 2020 and 2021 have really been devastating to some people's personal wealth. And so today I want to talk to you about things you can do to really improve your personal wealth. So whether you're just starting out and really don't have any wealth, or you have some wealth and you really want to take it to the next level, there's some things that you can do. And the important thing to do is understand that you really need to take action. There's the saying that when's the best time to plant a tree? It's 20 years ago. When's the next best time? It's today. And this is applicable to your wealth. So if you haven't been working on planning for your wealth and applying principles to become wealthier, now is the time to start. So we're coming off, as we come through this pandemic, we've seen lots of people really kind of lose out on what they thought they had, losing jobs unexpectedly, losing money in different markets and things like that. And the important thing to understand is that wherever you're at, you can still do action that's going to help you improve your personal wealth. And so I want to talk to you really about kind of 8 things that will help you improve your own personal wealth. And that first thing is you really need to know your net worth. And what that means is people often will overestimate or overvalue what they think they're worth. They look at all their assets and think, wow, I must have quite a bit. And they tend to forget their liabilities. And the important thing is to understand really what your true net worth is. And to do that, you really have to know really what's the total amount of your assets minus your total liabilities. So you may have a home that's worth $500,000 on the market, but you may owe $400,000 on the home. So you're not worth $500,000. You're worth $100,000. So the first thing is you've got to know what your net worth actually is. And that's simply done by basically totaling all your assets and minus then all your total liabilities to really know where you're starting from. The next thing is you need to pay off your bad debt. Now, debt is often looked at as something negative, and that's not necessarily true. There's what I call good debt and bad debt. And good debt means it's debt that's working for you, where you've leveraged it into some type of investment. Your home is a good example. Hopefully you buy your home, and typically you don't have to pay the full amount, so you leverage the money, you pay a down payment, and then that money's leveraged, and hopefully your home will then appreciate. So real estate's probably the simplest example of this, where you're leveraging money. So there's debt associated with it, but you're anticipating that debt is helping support the product or whatever it is, the asset, and that asset's going to grow in value. And then at some time down the future, you can then basically sell that asset and recover what you put into it plus more. And that's really good debt. Bad debt is debt that's always working against you. Probably the best example of this is credit card debt. Credit card debt is something that really is not adding any value to. You may have bought a new pair of shoes or the new nicest watch or whatever, and it might give you some instant gratification, but typically those items lose value immediately. And then when you use a credit card to purchase those items, usually you're paying a very, very high interest rate, and that interest rate is compounded daily. So every day that kind of that wave of interest is building on you and really becoming more and more kind of an obstacle for you, because you find yourself really making these payments where you're really not catching up. You're barely keeping up with the interest being charged. So bad debt is something you need to look at. And really, credit card debt is probably the biggest example of this. But any debt that isn't leveraged or tied to some type of product that is increasing in value is really something that you should consider paying off. Your car loans, things like that. When you buy a new car, its value almost immediately decreases when you leave the lot. Now, one thing I do want to say is, as we're talking about increasing your wealth, you'll say, well, Kelly, rich people drive really nice vehicles and things like that, which is true. But they wait until they can afford to really just know that this is not a productive wealth builder, but they now have enough wealth that they can kind of enjoy those finer things in life. So they've kind of waited to be able to purchase those things. And then typically those types of things are purchased right out, meaning they don't finance them at all. They can walk into a car dealer and just pay cash for a vehicle, so they aren't working against that interest or that interest isn't working against them. So the second thing to really consider is paying off your bad debt. Another thing related to your debt is maybe consolidation. So, with the pandemic, a lot of student loans have really been put on hold. Um, but that's really coming to an end, and you're gonna have to start making payments on student loans. So there may be some opportunity for you to consolidate different loans into one loan at a better interest rate, so you still kind of have that bad debt, but if you can reduce the interest rate, you're kind of reducing that amount of payout for that is going to now allow you to pay more money to the principal versus just paying the interest. The next thing to help build your wealth is really you got to plan for emergencies. So there's kind of two ways to plan for emergencies, and that's really kind of to have an emergency fund. If you look at the pandemic time, millions of people unexpectedly lost their job, and what happens then is if they haven't had any plan for this, they have no way to support themselves. So really, you need to have kind of that emergency fund, and statistically speaking, it should be 3 to 6 months of save money and savings that can cover your expenses. Now, needs to be held in a separate account. You don't want to have this in your checking account, but you want a true kind of like emergency fund account. And really, you should be really dedicated to only touching this money in a kind of the emergency situation, such as a loss of a job, or if you become ill, or if there's some other reason you can't work. The second vehicle in planning for emergencies is what I call the rainy day fund. So this is going to be a fund that's not going to be as much held in it as the emergency fund, but it's really there for unexpected expenses like a car repair, some medical bills, house repairs. The thing is you really want this to be there so you can have access to kind of immediately cover the cost of kind of those things that are unexpected, but it's going to really help you maintain and stay on budget so that you can continue to really make sure you're consistently investing. Because what's going to happen is you don't ever become wealthy from savings. You become wealthy for investing, but you have to save money in the context of paying off your bad debt, being prepared for emergencies, things like that. So now we're going to kind of transition to investing. So a lot of people, the first thing that they can do is invest in their retirement. So the big thing here is if you work for an employer that offers any type of match to a retirement program, you should at least be contributing the amount you're allowed to match that. So that means for every dollar you put in, your employer's putting some type of match into that. And that's really kind of an instant return on your money. Now, this is money you can't touch right away. But again, you're investing for your future. You're investing for your retirement. Now, there's other types of things you can do in kind of investing for your retirement, depending on if you're employed versus self-employed. And those are either kind of a Roth IRA, which works very similar to your 401k, and really you contribute to this after you pay taxes. So the money's, you pay taxes on the money, but then your contribution is earning money pre-tax or tax-free until you can start to withdraw that. And that's at 59 and a half years of age. So again, if you're 20 years old, you got to have the forethought to think, okay, but what about down the future versus spending the money now? Let's consider that someday I'm going to want to retire. How can I maximize that retirement? And then also depending on your kind of your work situation, there is a traditional IRA that you may be able to contribute to. But the important thing is you're maximizing the return on this investment. So that's some things you can do if you kind of are thinking about your retirement. But now to really grow your wealth, you need to think about long-term investments and have a plan for that. So, the problem is too many of us are really emotional investors. So maybe you have money in the stock market. As we enter the pandemic, the stock market starts to fall and fall, and you're watching your investment get worth less and less and less. And often what happens if you're driven by emotions, you pull that money out at a loss. It's a true loss at that point because you've taken the loss versus maybe kind of riding out this storm. And so the important thing is don't be an emotional investor. So there's things you can do thinking long term, not just the kind of responding emotionally to kind of the ebbs and flows of any type of market. So first thing is to have long-term investment plans. Don't have short-term investment plans. The next thing you can do is to diversify your portfolio. So what that means is really as you're investing, you're not just putting all your money in one type of vehicle, such as bonds or stocks, but you're actually kind of applying investments in various kind of things. That means if one kind of industry's having a downturn, then the other one hopefully won't be also having a downturn at the same time. So you may be invested in stocks and also real estate. But the big thing is to remember to kind of diversify your portfolio. Now, how this diversity goes, it will kind of depend on your risk tolerance. So if you're young and can really have many, many years ahead of you, you can probably take more risk with that because you can ride out the bad times. And then obviously if you're kind of age where you plan on starting to use some of this investment money, then you're going to have to be more risk adverse, if you will, and you're going to be more conservative in your portfolio on how you're investing. The next thing you can do to really help build your wealth is really reassess your insurance. Now, it's important to have insurance for things that are kind of those unexpected things, major car accidents, your house starts on fire and burns to the ground. And so you do want insurance to help protect those kind of loss because obviously those can be devastating to you. But you also want to make sure you're not overinsured. Insurance companies tend to really offer you a lot of different kind of insurance models or vehicles. And a lot of times you don't need these additional things. You really want to make sure you're insured enough to protect the assets you have, to ensure that you're, in the event that maybe you die or something, that your loved ones are taken care of. But you also want to make sure that you're not overinsured, because really overinsurance is a waste of money. The next one, and probably the hardest one for us to do, is to live below our means. So if you find yourself as you generate more income, whether it's through employment or you're self-employed, inheritance, you win the lottery, whatever, if your income is going up, but then you just become someone that spends more money than on things, you're not really living below your means. You want to make sure that you have a good, strong investment plan, which means that you're consistently putting money into these investment vehicles you choose, and that you don't fluctuate, meaning that as your income grows, that you then spend more money on things that really have no value in helping promote your investment. Again, so this might be buying an expensive car when you don't need the expensive car that a more economical car will do for you. But again, only you can determine what your means are and are you living below your means. But this is one area where a lot of people really think that they kind of have this windfall of money, therefore they can buy additional things, and they quickly realize all they've done is increase their debt burden, and now they're kind of still right where they were at. They just have a bigger debt burden, and really then that additional income's not working for them. It's now working against them because they've used that additional income to become tied to that, what I would say was debt, is that bad debt. So the important thing to remember whenever you're focusing on your wealth is you got to start sometime. And if you haven't already started, well, then today is the day to start. It's a new year, get started. Remember, you got to start somewhere. And if it's only just a few dollars that you're able to then kind of start applying to building your wealth, well, it's a good start. So start there at least. So if you don't have any money, then maybe you don't have a Starbucks coffee every day, and you take that money and start to invest it in some type of stocks or something like that. The important thing is to really start somewhere. So if you haven't started anywhere, first thing you gotta do is figure out what your net worth is. You got to create a budget so you can get out of debt, get rid of that bad debt, and then you're going to start putting your money into things that are helping you create wealth. It's a different type of investment, so that money is working hard for you, not working against you. Now, if you've already done these things, then really remember to constantly kind of evaluate where you're at. It's not something you want to just say, okay, I'm placing my money in this vehicle in the context of investment vehicle, and now I'm just going to walk away from it. Now I'm going to come back in 20 years and hopefully it's grown in value and I'm wealthy. That's not what you want to do. You're going to want to continually watch it, and you're going to be continually making new strategies to really, so you're helping kind of step up your investment strategy. And really what that means is as you do this, you'll become more educated on different things that you can do to invest in, and you're removing that emotional component out. That's important to remember. You do not want to invest emotionally because often that really doesn't work out. Now, again, this is something you need to start today. If you haven't, consider what's happened to many people during the pandemic. It's been devastating to them, many people financially. And so you need to have a good plan in place, and then you need to be executing on that plan and following through with that plan. The important thing to remember is there's really no right or wrong way to build wealth. Really, the key is to really just start and then learn as you go, apply the principles, and continue to be consistent in growing your wealth. So remember, it's up to you, but the reality is you can be healthier, wealthier, and happier if you're willing to do the work. So hopefully you find some help in this. If there's anything else you need from us, let us know. Thank you.